Alrighty. Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Experience. And we haven't seen my wonderful friend, Kerry Walker, in a while, so I want to invite her back. Hello, welcome, Kerry.
Hi, honey. How are you?
So good. So good to see you. And of course, that beautiful wallpaper.
Thank you very much. And isn't that
It
pretty?
is so cool. And it's really smooth.
It is
Um,
very smooth. That is true.
whoever
It's
did it, it did an extraordinary job.
well, actually, you know what? It's not as smooth. You can see a lot of I did not have them take it all the way back. And so because my paint, I don't know if you can see this. So my paint is do you see the paint? Do you see
Yeah.
how? Wait,
Yeah.
here we go. It is you're supposed to like take it back to glass and everything's supposed to be smooth. Well, then it was like, well, the paint's not smooth because I like the bumps. And so I left the bumps there. Okay, that was
Well,
a little side note.
you and your artist texturizing, you get to do it.
Well,
Whenever, I mean, whenever you do something, it's always a very fantastic, beautiful expression. And so, you're a friend that I've always sort of loved to powwow with and think kind of out of the box when it comes to the weird times. And boy, we've been talking about the weird times for a long time now. And it's just keeps getting weirder. And I guess I noticed too in my practice that a lot of people seem to be becoming more willing to try and figure out what it is that's going on within them, sort of contextualize like what is going on the planet, what's happening within me. People who are identifying their high sensitivity, and you and I are both highly sensitive people.
right.
And I mean, and you've been living with your sensitivity for a while now, and being out with it. And what do you notice? You're in Houston. What do you notice in the world happening around you?
Well, it's so funny that you say that because this has been, I realize you asked me that you and I were texting back and forth and you asked me, we were talking about what we may want to kind of a broad stroke, what we wanted to approach for this. And I think I'm living it to a point that I don't see it.
Mm,
It is just such this everything for me for this past year has been about framework, and it's been
mm,
about identifying the framework and seeing where I wanted to tweak and make that change. And it's for me, it's been the perfect storm. My dad died almost a year ago, May 13th.
wow, I
Menopause.
can't believe it's already been that long.
I know, right? And my son left. So I have three boys, and my eldest son went off to school. So, and I've been a very
So he's been
upfront mom.
away this whole year.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm
Oh
going
my
up this weekend
God.
to spend the weekend with him and his buddies. He's going to the lake for 10 days. And my mom said she's like, that's kind of a long time, but she's very happy about it. No, but so he's gone across that bridge. So it is no like there are things I want to say, but I don't because I wouldn't say these things to my friends. So I'm not saying them to you. If he asks me, yes, I will say it.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
I being a mother has always been my number one job. And I decided early on, and I think even before I met a husband, that I wanted to raise my kids.
Mm-hmm.
And if I could, I mean, if I was in a
Mm-hmm.
position where I could do that. And I really kind of set my life up that way. I went to school to be a designer because I thought I could work out of the house and be a mom and I don't multitask very well. So and all of that comes with another side, you know. I mean, then there's this part where you're like, now I'm ready to go. Now I'm ready to go out into the world and do what I want to do. And so again, those three things happening at once and it threw me for a loop. I mean, I think I'm like smack dab in the middle of a midlife crisis, minus the crisis. You know, I mean, it is, well, some of it was a little bit. So, framework. Well, let's discuss what's going on in framework. Where do you want to go first?
Well, I love that you're using the term framework because, I feel like the energy on the planet has been pretty trippy. And I know we were getting blasted with solar flares last week. I
Yeah.
know we're back in Mercury retrograde. I know
When are we
this,
not?
I think there's 3 or 4 a year. So it's periodic. I had a great, a friend of mine who's been on the show, Sharita Starr. She said it's the planet's way or the celestial way of making us step back.
Hmm. I like
Because
that.
when you push through Mercury retrograde, you get screwed up. You can't be in a hurry. You can't not, like I've had, computer BS taking place, just stuff gets stymied and funky, and you have to kind of be patient
your roll.
and you slow it through. And what she says too about Mercury retrograde is it's a time of introspection. So when the retrogrades are happening, if you don't feel like pushing, really listen to that. And I certainly have been feeling that, like definitely needing to take like introspection time. But I've been noticing when you say structure, maybe about a year ago, or maybe two now, I started noticing, especially when going on these big walks with a friend of mine who's also been on the show, Tracy Phillips, that there along my spine is there. I noticed that if I'm feeling like, how you feel when you've got to move energy out of your being, like you're feeling like old
Like
shit coming up, and it's like, what? Oh, how am I going to do this? And just when I look sort of at my inner self, I see these gigantic, they look almost like girding, like I beams that are along my spine. And I've maybe about, it first started, I felt like on the right side of my spine, it all just sort of lifting out and moving out. And then pretty recently, the left side happened. And I just forget about it when I go through it, and then I'm like, oh, that was weird. And then I carry on. But then this sort of girding energy it's like old infrastructure energy that is in my body that I'm assuming is a reflection of what's happening in the collective, but I can like literally see it moving out of my body, and I can feel it. And it's like, oh, it's like a detox is what it feels like.
how long does it last? The sensation?
Well, the awareness that it's happening is almost like it doesn't take very long to move out, but then the response in my body feels like that integration process where maybe I need more sleep, I need more water, I need to move my body. Like there's just like self-care has to be sort of the thing, right? Like must take care of self in order to sort of get beyond it. But then more intuitive, more grounded, more clear channel, those things start coming through clearer.
Right.
Yeah.
You want to know what I'm seeing?
What?
That's exactly what that is. It's the infrastructure. And they somewhere in the back of my head, somewhere I've read, it's been years ago, about how our structure will, like a crystalline, like it, like the density, because you know how when like it's us and then there are layers to us, the aura or whatever you want to call it, and then how everything kind of comes in, and by the time it's an illness or something has manifested in your actual person, I mean, it takes forever.
Right.
So that's why you can try to grab it while it's out there.
It's been like in thought for long enough where it's starting to solidify into the physical form through the energy bodies. Yeah.
That's exactly right. And that's what I see for you, is that you've been forced to, and you've wanted to, and you've reached for it. And I kind of feel like you've shown up right on time. Like, okay, now we're shedding this, and it's fair game. I mean, that's the exciting part, is whatever, it's like an open ground zero, whatever's coming in, but yeah,
it's like a layer of the onion kind of a thing. I think it continuously happens. And when you talk about structure and moving out of infrastructure, and what I understand where we're headed is more flexibility. I mean, I think everything in our culture is sort of requiring us to become more nimble in consciousness,
fluid,
and fluid, gender wise, in ideas. I mean, we're still seeing this sort of old school patriarchy dichotomy playing out, where it's like, if it's not this, it has to be this, and it has to be either like or. Screaming at high pitch histrionics. And it's like, what if it's this, or then the entire spectrum of options in between? Like, why does it have to be one or the other. It could, go ahead.
I know I have an answer for that. I remember a friend of mine's dad wrote a book, and he said, he was a child psychiatrist, and he said, when you have a child that you want to promote their autonomy, but you don't want to give them, okay, what would you like to eat? Well, of course, they're going to pick popsicles. They're not going to pick, green beans. And so you say, would you like a carrot or would you like a green bean? And they feel that they have the autonomy. But they really don't. And I think I think that powers that be, I think a lot of people feel very safe with the either or, because then they don't have to think. They don't have to go beyond. And what do I really want? And how do I really do this? And what are my choices? I mean, they're infinite, right? So you're right. I think that that's a lot of it. And I also think that right now we're in a place where they're emptying their bags. They're saying, we're pulling it all out, because you can't fix things. You can't heal things if you don't know what you're trying to heal. So if there's,
and you're not acknowledging what's wounded.
Oh, now that's an interesting topic, but you're exactly right. Because people just distract, keep going. Don't worry about it. It'll fix itself.
Don't pay attention to what infrastructure is actually trying to be implemented when we're having you pay attention to the histrionics right here. And I think what you mentioned, what really just caught me is like, it feels parental. It feels so like patriarchy feels parental, and it's old school, and it feels like so outdated, so outmoded.
That's exactly.
I don't think everybody feels that way though.
Well, but I'm just because we start to see it first doesn't mean that everybody won't eventually come along. And I'm not saying that I'm a spearhead. I'm not. I mean, but I do see patterns, and I do see things emerge. And
well, and I want something different. I want something way more fun, where I believe that human beings have the ability to hold. I mean, it's like, it used to be even more respected than it is now, is to have lively debate. And I know you have a big debate group of guys in your home, and like, to be able to hold conversations, especially difficult ones, and mutually respect one another, it's like a lost art.
Well, I have a good friend of mine that recently I asked him, I said, if you ever ran for office, what is the first thing you would do? And I love this response. He said, I would get everybody together and figure out what we all agree on. Because I have a feeling that when you focus on what we all want, I don't care what you are, who you are, where you live. We want clean food. We want our kids to be safe. We want the option to have kids or not.
It's a pretty simple thing. It's
exactly. We have to work really hard to stay mad.
Yeah.
We really do. And so it's
so true.
Yeah, I thought that was so simple yet so big. But I think that I think we are in a time, we've all heard about the new earth, and we've all heard about the shift. And I mean, it's been, we've been talking about that forever. And I think they've actually been talking about that forever. And I think we are there. And I think we are in the middle of that.
Yeah.
And that's actually, I'd love to talk about some of that, because I've been shown a lot of things recently. And I think that it is one of, I'm kind of shifting here, but shifting to the shift that, and this is how I see it. The old films, like when the projector, it would go through the projector, and like every scene was a little square. It looks like that. And the more distance between whatever event, or however many squares, it keeps going. You get further and further away from that issue or that event. And so, and where I'm trying to go with this is, so funny because I don't know how to say it. I feel like I am so far away from politics, and I don't give a shit. I don't care. And people are like, oh, but you live in Texas and all this shit. I mean, oh yeah, I vote and I do those things, but I don't care. I mean, and the further away from it I get, the happier I am. And I'm not sticking my head in the sand. I know what's going on. And I recently saw Congresswoman this and that, and and we talk and we have these, anyway, and it's
cool.
well, no, I'm making it sound bigger than it was. It wasn't. I mean, it was more of a bumping into that person, but but what I'm saying is I know it's out there, but if you can distance yourself from it. Last night I told Charles, as we went to bed, I said, don't watch the news.
Yeah. Oh my
Don't read the
gosh.
news. Why
Yeah.
would you ingest that and let your psyche just roll it around in your head?
At
It doesn't
bedtime.
matter. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
it does if it's you, but
Mhm.
and then this morning, Miles and I were talking on the way to school, and we were talking about background people, and I was telling him, I said, how do I know that? And I think you and I've talked about this before, and I'm going somewhere with all of this. But how do I know that that person walking down the street is real? I don't
Mhm.
know her,
Mhm.
and as soon as she's out of my eyesight, she's gone. I'm
Mhm.
gone.
Mhm.
So how do you know? So if you start, because unfortunately, what I said to him, I said, how do you know that the Ukraine that's happening? He's like, oh, Mom, you can't say that. I said, no, I don't mean it like that. Not a conspiratorial way. I'm not
Right.
saying that. I'm
Right.
just saying
You're
there
talking about
is
reality.
exactly. And actually,
Yeah.
that's what I was writing about. And that's not in my reality. I love that we're
Mhm.
right there.
Mhm.
Anyway, so I think that distancing yourself, and I think the further away from the discord, and again, not, I mean, something needs to be healed, acknowledge it, look at it,
Mhm.
live in it. I mean, there's no way watching my mom go through the loss of the love of her life.
Mm.
Nothing I could do. I could sit on the
Right.
floor with her. I could hold her hand. I could go through bank accounts with her. I could help clean stuff up, but she had to go through that by herself. Like when we
Yep.
have a baby,
Right.
we
Yeah.
have to go through that by ourselves.
Yeah.
And so
Yep.
I just got chills with that. But
That's so helpful, right? I think it's very honoring of the human experience that we're in. And no amount of suffering, this is an Abraham Hicks thing, no amount of suffering can help them. No amount of projecting your suffering into their experience will help them get through it.
oh, that was a huge lesson that I had to learn. Like I would get down there with you and oh well, I remember when this happened to me and no. Not fine.
Oh,
I'm like,
me
dude,
too.
come back up here with me. I mean,
Especially with animals. I do that still sometimes. Like I'll see an animal, this happened to me the other day with a squirrel that had been hit, but it wasn't dead yet. And I was just like, no, and I was suffering so much. And at that moment, I was just shown that the amount of suffering that I was having, the squirrel was really there to show me that I was actually like it was a symbol of my own suffering, if that makes sense. The
mm-hmm.
squirrel was a reflection of where my energy was. And I was like, oh shit. So I think it's a really interesting thing because I recently was interviewed on a podcast, and it's called Being Reasonable. And the whole premise of it is asking a person about their belief. And you're not supposed to say what your belief is, and you're just supposed to talk about it. But I hadn't really researched the guy who was interviewing me, and it was pretty clear by the completion of that interview that he doesn't believe in my belief that I was bringing to the table was I believe that there is a soul. And he he didn't admit that he didn't but believe in a soul, but he kept saying things like, I like to believe in things that are true. And so it's interesting when we're talking about reality, we're obviously talking about perception. And then we get into the place of like truth, right? And it's just such an interesting dance here on the planet, like what is true for you is true for you.
Correct.
And you don't push that on anyone.
No, and it's very hard not to. And it's very
Yeah.
hard to just surround yourself with people that are just like you. And I have so many atheists in my life. And I have seriously, I try to, it was agree not to argue. I was trying to do a show with a friend of mine. And I mean, and poking holes. And I would get so frustrated. But the biggest gift out of this fella that you talked to and my friend is that it really made me look at what I believe, why I believe it. And do I really believe it? Or is that just a framework I created at some point? I mean, yes, I believe it at the end of the day, but it is. So okay. So reality, I think reality that has come up for me in such an incredible way. And this idea of persona, that we are a persona, That's all we are. And this persona, Nora, you are just, so you want to hear this?
Yes.
Okay. Because I think first you have to know that you're not who you think you are.
Right.
And you are,
that you're more than who you think you are.
But in this moment, we're not. And we are who we think we are. And we limit and we contextualize. And those contexts are so safe. And they give us the rules of how to live this life. I'm a mother. I'm an aunt. I'm a friend. I'm a
wife,
whatever it is. I'm a woman.
Yeah.
But where it's safe, but it's also very restrictive. And because I am this type of wife or this type of mom, these are the rules I've set forth for myself. Some of them great, some of them not, right? And so it's great until you outgrow it. And I'm not talking about wife. I mean, whatever it is, being a woman, being a wife, being
just being a category of something.
A category. That's exactly right. Limiting.
Yeah.
So, and your persona is what you've agreed is how your soul or I don't like the term higher self, because for me I can't contextualize it. And so it's okay, let's just say higher self has decided to come into this reality is via your persona.
Yeah.
And you live out this life. But if we're talking about the multiverse and all these different realities going on at once, that's actually what I was writing down. That's actually what I wanted. And this morning I had a big because a long time ago, I don't know if I ever told you this, it's like they showed me, my guides, my team showed me all of these sound stages when they were dark. I mean, like a field, infinite field, and they were dark. Not dark as in bad, just not lit up. And when you turn your awareness on one, like I want to go to A&M or I want to go to Rice University or Purdue or wherever, whatever that is, that sound stage lights up. It's like all the cables get plugged in and always think
which is so totally quantum, and that's quantum.
I love that. I don't know, but it is. And the ones that are closest to you are the easiest to access. So, and then recently I was given, and a few years ago I saw that. And then recently I was given this idea that it's not new. I know that, but it's this idea that it's like I had a circle and all these different jewels in this circle, and they kind of like roll around, and I say jewels because each one has like different, I'm trying not to have to say the word facets. Yes.
Yeah.
And you can access the ones closest to you. And those are the easy parallels, the easy jumps that we make, when they say the Mandela effect, that kind of thing. But it's the one that's over there that gets a little trickier. Like if I say, hey, guess what, Charles, let's go to Australia. That's a little trickier to do because we don't identify that. And then when you do have a parallel or a jump, usually you don't see it. Like it may be one little tiny tweak, but you really, everything looks the same.
It's seamless. Right. It's just the timeline may be shifting, but it's still like unfolding in front of you as it would. Like, I feel like that's always happening. It's always adjusting in like sort of micro. Yeah.
Little tiny tweaks.
Yeah. Like pre-micro moments.
Exactly. Mini micro. But it is. So but today was the first day that they actually plugged them together. So if we go with this idea that I was trying to explain this to Miles, my poor son, I mean, he just gets this every day on the way to school, not every day, but a lot of days. And then he'll just plug in his earphones like, okay, I'm not going to listen to you, Mom. But it is. So the reality part is where we agreed to jump into the life, whether it's 1825, 2025, that's where we agreed to jump in, and that can shift. But then the persona that we came in as, that is the diamond part, that is that circle part, the persona, and then the set is the place and time. Well, of course there's no time. And so, but it is just so fascinating to me, because when you start seeing these things, you realize how you can do whatever you want.
You can be whoever you want too. Yeah.
You want to go big, go big.
Yeah.
You want to go run your van into a bunch of people, you can do that too. That's your option.
Yeah.
But you really can do anything. Anyway. So
right. No. And what are you here to explore too? And I totally agree. And I I think it's really fun to play in that space because it feels so much more fun than the idea that we're just here and that
We're slogging through to the
we're
death
just and
end,
we're
you know, the
and we're
death
here
march.
we're here for no real apparent reason, and we just get sort of like happenstance just plopped into these bodies, and some get good ones, some get not so good ones, and it's the luck of the draw, and then you die, and then there's nothing else. It just doesn't make any sense at all
I
to
know
me.
that feeling. I've had that feeling. And it's just like,
Yeah.
fucking take me out now. I mean,
Yeah, I
I don't
mean,
want to
there's
do this
no
again.
point in doing this. There's
Right.
really, for me, there's no point. And when I was asked in that interview, he's like, if you were to find out, or if you could find out that your belief was untrue, would you want to know? I was like, no, of course not. Of course I wouldn't. Because why would I want to live? If there is no soul, why would I want to do this stupid thing?
That's a setup, man.
It was a setup.
It
It
felt
was.
like a setup.
And then he
That's
ended
so
it like,
interesting.
closed right after I said it. I said no, and he shut
Don't,
it down. So it was interesting because that I haven't had a lot of critique of me, and that's a platform where they're like, you got her good and blah 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 spot, and I was just like, whoa. But it was good. It was really good for me because I paid attention. I don't usually watch stuff over again, and I watched it and I was like, I'm actually really satisfied with what took place there, and I want to be able to have those conversations. And whether the host actually was respectful, like in his heart, about what I believe in, because I've since sort of followed him, and I think he likes to have people who may come across as a little bit like
new age,
or just like maybe not like maybe that will ultimately look like fools in some way, is the hope.
yeah.
I think that truth will bear, bear the ultimate fruit, and that people who have cockamamie beliefs will end up with pie on their face. But I really don't think that happened, and I think you and I probably can very much agree that we could be talking to people who are spiritually oriented and pay attention to the things that we like to pay attention to, and there's no discord there. It's like we're all on the same page, everybody's listening to each other. But then there are people who really don't find solace in thinking about spiritual things or metaphysical things, that they're really earth-based, and they get really uncomfortable. And the idea of not having like an empirically driven truth to hang their sort of hat on in their life is very uncomfortable and not really something that they're willing to entertain. And I honor that. Like I get that. I mean, I feel like
Right.
I've had lifetimes where I've done that. And so I feel like I remember that.
I feel like I had past lives where I actually did that.
I know that feeling. Sorry if you don't
just
believe in
laughing.
past lives, but it's very informative to me.
Well, you know what though? I think that we have to have people that challenge, and I think we have to. Because what we believe is the word intangible. I mean, and so
I love the word ineffable. It's so
ineffable is a
ineffable,
great word. It is
isn't
a
it?
great word. I every now and then have to roll it back and think, okay, and not to go down the Christianity. Oh, I do have a funny story. The priest that kind of set me on this whole path, the one that when I said something about past lives, I thought his head was going to explode. And then he called me out, and I'm like in front of hundreds of people. My mom's like, he's talking about you. I found him and I emailed him. And I said, I just want to thank you. And I hope you could hear the tone. I wish you could hear the tone of my voice, because it truly is one of honor. And I kind of explained everything. I mean, I did vacation Bible study. I mean, I did all of it. I really, really gave it the old college try. And and he ran me off. But, and this is what what I thanked him for, is that it is what I realized is that I needed to go within and strengthen my relationship to God my own way.
Yeah.
And that was a huge gift to me. And yeah, I didn't hear back from him.
Not very Christian of you, but sure, go ahead.
Well, I'm not Christian. So
yeah, it is what it is.
My homie, but
yeah.
I'm not, I don't buy into that. And that
Well,
is,
and I think too, like when you are in a not to put down people who resonate with Christianity,
It's
but when
beautiful.
it's beautiful. And I think Jesus is a way cool dude too. And I connect with him all the time. He's my homie, just like you. But what I'll say is when I'm told something that I'm being told that the only way to communicate to God is through the priest or through the preacher, that I can't have a personal relationship with the divine, my bullshit detector goes off, because I know that that isn't true.
Right.
You know, it was interesting. I was recently working with a client who is having a massive spiritual awakening, but was raised in a very strong, indoctrinated into a very strict Christianity. And we were just, very open as I can possibly be. But in the hypnotic experience, if he doesn't believe that this information, this consciousness can flow through him, then we're going to be stuck.
Can I give you a piece of advice?
Sure.
And I really, so I visited with someone who, her mother was the one that, when I was like 9 or 10, she would do these Bible studies, and she used to babysit me, and I became a Christian.
Mm-hmm.
And so anyway, forward dozens of years,
Mm-hmm.
she and I meet. And so she was raised, same thing, very devout and
Mm-hmm.
very devout Southern Baptist, I believe, and
Mm-hmm.
lovely. The family's lovely. And she just, same thing. She couldn't put it, like she didn't know where that was supposed to land,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and her beliefs, because she too was having an awakening. And I said, it's not an either or, it's a yes and.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
she was like,
Mm-hmm.
that changed it.
Yeah.
Because you don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. You
Oh
can,
yeah. Well, and
you can see the beauty in it.
I work with people in this space a lot. And I think yes, I agree with you, and it's perfect. And I think at a certain point though, when a person, there's a letting go, I think, in the process of in order to heal, let's say,
Right. Yeah.
in order to heal, there's a relinquishment of, I mean, really just getting into the hypnotic space, right? Like just letting because what's happening is your intellect is running the show most of the time. If you're sort of programmed the way most people are, they're running through their intellect. And so just getting into the felt experience of the physical body and then tuning into awareness is something that we all can do.
Mhm.
And there's something about, I think, the letting go. I mean, I think maybe he was using the Christianity as like to him it felt very philosophically oriented, like, if I allow this, because he was getting stuck, if I allow this could mean that the foundation that I've built my entire understanding on may not be true. And it's not that he, like, the yes and would be perfect there, it'd be like perfectly like
But he's
right
not ready for
there.
that. Yeah.
But yeah, it's like, I mean, I think it's just when I think we've all had beliefs that aren't working for us, that we're not necessarily ready to examine. And it can feel a little bit like a house of cards, like someone's going, if we just tug on this little
Right.
card, let's see what happens. And he's just like, ah. So it was just interesting because
Fair
in
enough.
conversation, he's just like, yeah, I'm ready, and then when it came right down to it, it was just like, like, no. And so, and I'm to me, it's sort of like, ooh, like, let's dig in there. Let's try and find out
his belief. What is his belief? I mean, what is he afraid of? Because I know every time I quote leveled up, I would reach a point. I'm sure I did this with you. I'm like, this shit's bullshit. I can't believe it. Why do I believe it? And always when I was getting ready to throw out all my writing and all my books and all my stuff, I was about to level up. But they say that when you see a counselor too, before you have a big breakthrough, you don't want to go because you're feeling very vulnerable and it's a little bit scary.
Yeah.
And so it'll be fun to see where this person is in a year,
Yeah.
because I'm
Well,
sure that
and I
he'll
mean,
break
we
through
see
it.
it in our kids. I mean, remember when they were
Oh
toddlers and
yeah.
they were about to hit a milestone and they were like all of a sudden
They go
like they would
backwards.
regress. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's like,
exactly.
whoa, what's happening here?
Like, why are you doing that? I know. That's true. I think they still do it too, just
Get
saying.
off the floor. Oh, it's okay.
Or you know what, just keep doing you. You're gonna sleep well tonight. I'll get a good night's sleep. No, but so it is, it's interesting. And I've wondered this past year if I've been so out of it, because again, the structure that I had created for myself
Hmm.
didn't work. And
Wow.
and I found myself disengaging.
Hmm.
And I just, it's like, it reminded me, do you know that scene? This is what I see in my head. Do you remember that scene? Did you ever see Goodfellas?
Oh yeah.
Do you remember the scene where he's dating Lorraine Bracco?
Rocco. Uh-huh. Yeah,
And
where
no, no,
he's
no. They
like,
just got married
uh-huh.
and everybody's waiting up. They live with her parents and everybody's waiting up. And he
Uh-huh.
comes in and like the mother's like, wait, and she's like, and screams at him. And he just is like, oh, fuck no. He turns around and walks out, like
Yeah.
shakes his head. That's the way I've been, which is like, oh yeah, fine.
Yeah,
You do
no.
you.
Hmm.
I'm over
I'm
here.
out. Hmm.
Yeah. And it's been really interesting, but I think I've had to do that in order to reengage
I
and
think that
reengage in
makes
a way.
perfect sense because it's almost like, I mean, the way I see it, and shout out to Ray Liotta,
Mhm.
rest in peace. Um,
He's not
you
resting. He's not resting, but go ahead.
Yes. Bring on Ray if you wanted to come in. It's like tendrils of consciousness is how I see it. It's like you to sort of unengage or like disentangle, and I mean sort of like quantum entanglement, like to just sort of
Mhm.
withdraw your energies so that you can pivot. It's almost like regaining your energetic charge and
Right.
withdrawing it from areas that are draining to it so that you can fortify. And there's that sort of going underground, as you say, and recharging so that you can be ready to pivot in this new up leveling way.
Right. Right. Because it's and especially the way I parented, good or bad, I found myself thinking, okay, child number one, what can I do to make your life? What can I do to launch you? And
Mm-hmm.
for to just set you out, the best way I can. Okay, kid number two, what do you want to do? You're coming
Mm-hmm.
in. Okay, kid number three, how are we
Mm-hmm.
going to do this?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, husband, how are we going to do this? What can I
Yeah.
do to make your life
Oh.
better? Now I'm like, uh-uh. you know, that doesn't work for me. And it's you do reach a point where it's like, now what?
Mm-hmm. How
Now
do
what?
you make yourself fulfilled? How do you give yourself what you need in order to launch?
And I'm not playing victim here because I set it up this way 100%. But for me, it came down to this.
I think a lot of parents are facing this right now, though.
Well, this the
It's
phase you and I are in.
yeah, yeah,
And I think it was a backlash from the way parents parented in the 80s and
yes,
so on and so forth. And I know my husband and I were talking about retiring and what that looked like. We've never discussed that. And
uh-huh.
he's not going to, I mean, in 15 years or whatever. I mean, but we're just talking about different things. And I said, okay, I just want to be really clear, to Bob, and that I'm not retiring. I am not moving to the Ozarks. I'm not doing it. I'm not moving out onto a ranch. I have, my business was just really taken off and
Yeah,
I wanted to raise my babies. And it's like, I've been waiting for this and don't know what it's going to look like, but
yeah,
this is going to be fun. And
yeah.
it is. And it's like, okay, it's my turn and it's our turn. And poor Miles, I mean, he's only 14, but he's great. But I'm just, so to wrap this back in, I think, oh, I got really off track there, but I think what I wanted to tell
No, it's
you,
all connected. I love it.
well, it's an interesting thing because I don't feel metaphysical
Mm,
anymore.
mhm, mhm,
It just happens. Like
mhm.
I hear things, I see things,
Well, it's
but
fully integrated.
I think that's what it is.
Mhm.
And I know I did a show yesterday. I've been working on this series called Dying to Know. And
Mm.
I just remember with my grandfather, I was 7 looking at him in the casket and I was like, you were just here. Where
Mm.
are you?
Mhm.
And so I mean, I've always felt that way. And I believe, I can sometimes connect, very hit or miss, but I mean, I believe, but then to sit back and say, yeah, but this death thing, like,
Mm.
where are you? And losing my dad has been an ass kicker. And so, and he's been around a couple times and he's a trip, but I think he's always here. Well, actually, I have not felt him in a while. So I think he's like, y'all are okay now. I have got some
Mhm.
work to do,
Mm. Mhm.
but it is,
Mhm.
and you can probably feel that too with your papa, but it is. So I have been really asking, and all they showed me, they kind of laugh at me, but all they showed me was the actual death process, like the actual, because I'm fine
Mhm.
after someone's gone, but
Mhm.
and it's weird how the human psyche needs to, like, you're going to experience the loss, you're going to experience the grief, you can't bypass that even if
Mm-mm.
you know.
Yeah.
And it is, so one night, spring break, we were at the Strand on the island and we did a ghost tour and I was talking to Kathleen Macca, who did the ghost tour. By the way, I'm hopping all over the place.
It's
And
all, you're on track.
she was talking about, we were talking about death, and I said, I know it's a dimensional thing, and I know it's like a caterpillar, and everybody's like, where's the caterpillar? Where'd he go? It's like, oh, he's up there, the butterfly. It's just a transition of energy, but I still, for whatever reason, it's like it's bugging me. It's
Mm.
bugging me that I can't feel it. And later that night, what I felt was this resolve and detachment from the body, like the actual what happens, not where you go, not
Mm.
what you do, not the belief
Mhm.
side or
Mhm.
the
Mhm. Like what it
perception side,
feels like.
the physical, the last moments of being human.
Mhm.
And it was very much not giving birth in the pain way, but
Mhm.
how when you're like, oh shit, this baby's coming, I mean,
Mhm.
I have no control over this,
Mhm. The
and billions of
portal
people have
has
been.
been opened.
It very
Mhm.
much is that, and it's like,
Yeah.
oh, here we go. And
Mhm.
so part of that dying to know that series, I interviewed somebody yesterday, and he had an NDE, and that's what he was like. It was just resolve. I mean, it was like, oh, I guess today's the day, and
Uh-huh.
and it's
Wow.
so matter of
What
fact.
That's so cool. I really want you to talk more about your series so that people know about it.
Well, I don't know if I'm doing it.
Oh, you're doing the recording still.
Yeah, I say that because nothing worked yesterday, and I'm
Oh.
not sure that that's not. I mean, I don't mean to take it as a sign, but nothing worked.
Well, it is
Audio didn't
Mercury
work.
retrograde.
Well, yeah, I know, and that's no. But the series is basically I
I
want to
would
talk to.
love to see that.
Okay, well, I might do it. But
I'm sure
it's
tons of people would love that.
well, it's the NDE side, but I won't. Like I've talked to SRF, like the Yogananda's group,
Uh-huh.
and I want to talk to a
Cool.
priest. I want to talk to a Baptist minister. There are 4,000 different religions that we know of. 4,000, more than.
And I think there's over 8,000 different interpretations of Christianity.
That deserves its own
Someone's
hour.
maybe right. I don't know.
Somebody somewhere. No, but where do we overlap? And
Mhm.
from a faith standpoint to a how we interpret death to how
Mhm.
we experience it. I mean, all of it. Like how I'm very curious
Ooh, you should
how
have a death
similar.
doula on.
Yeah, I thought about doing a hospice, but it was during
Yeah.
COVID, and because I think hospice, being there when my dad died, was the most fascinating experience. I mean, it was a
Yeah.
really huge gift. Um, but yeah, that would be fun, and that I mean, fun is I'm sure poor choices of words. That would be interesting.
Yay! Well, it
Cassie,
is
what do you have
so
on today?
fascinating. I mean, there's really nothing more beautiful in life than being with people in those powerful transitions of birth and death. I mean, because
Agree.
every eye contact matters, every word, like, every touch is just like, it may be that your last time with them, like, it's so meaningful, and you're trying to sear everything of their like animated being into you, because you know that at some point it is going to happen and they are going to be an empty vessel.
and you can see it when they are.
It is,
That
there's
was
nothing
wild.
more clear about it than when it's done and it is just like,
It's like the locust sitting on the shell, sitting on the
uh-huh,
tree. Yeah.
uh-huh.
Yeah.
It's
I mean,
too
it's crazy.
weird. I mean, it's not, unfortunately, it's not a pretty thing. Often.
But it
Oh,
it, it
my husband's just getting home.
is a new baby pretty? I mean, no, they're covered in goo and
That's
they're
true.
ugly. Most
That's
babies are
true.
ugly when they're born. Just we love them so much, and
We
we
give it
just
a pass. But my baby is beautiful. No, yours is ugly too.
like, holy, no, yours is ugly too. You keep telling yourself that. That keeps us from
But it
doing
cued it
bad
up
things.
real fast.
Oh, they do, don't they? They just get little chubby bubbies. But it's yeah. But no, I think you're right, and I think that is such a. You're right. It's such an honor, and it's such an intimate experience. I mean, unless somebody gets shot, that's not so intimate. But
Yeah.
you know
Yeah,
what I mean.
right. Yeah. But I mean it like, and also the moment a person dies, or even not even just a moment, there's a time frame. And I don't know how you would measure it, but it almost feels like a vacuum of silence, almost like on a snowy day.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's this
Yeah.
stillness that's like, whoa, what is it? And it feels otherworldly. It feels like maybe you're in that
You're
sort of in between.
you're in the in between.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on, I'm writing that one down. Um, well, I agree, and I think they're popping in and out. I told you about my grandmother when she passed, and that is one thing. I mean, a lot of things I can't do, but I can sometimes see. Tell Scott hi, by the way. Um, tell it. I can see when people cross. And the very first time it
Mm.
happened, this is way before. I mean, I was like in my mid-20s, and somebody said something. The ranch hand at their ranch had died, and I'd met him, and I saw him, skinny little guy with a big old head. I think his hat weighed more than him, and he had a beer. He had like a Budweiser, and he was but I saw flames on his back. And I said, how
Oh,
did he die?
wow.
And they said that this thing had exploded and he caught on fire. And so I was like,
Oh,
okay, I saw it.
whoa.
And he was
Wow.
fine. And so when my grandmother passed away, she was a beautician and she was like 4'10", always wore heels. And I mean, she was always on shows. She's when she'd smoke and walking into her house. I tell the story a lot,
Little
but walking in her house.
Spitfire.
Oh, she was, but she would like, beer batter shrimp, and she's there with her cigarette, and so it smelled like cigarette smoke and shrimp and beer. And I love that smell. And you're doing this because her ashes are going to fall into the food. And but she always had her hair done and always had, I mean, she was a beautician, in South Texas. And so
I
she
love
had
it.
been in a home for a long time, and she'd had a stroke, and her bed was up against the wall. And my grandfather, who has been gone for a long time, I mean, Emma couldn't feel him. I couldn't feel him. He's been out doing something. He was gone. But he came back to get her. And I saw her, the wall behind her bed turn in just a space, like black.
Wow.
And there were a lot of people there, like over to the left-hand side. And and my grandfather stepped forward. I mean, he walked up to get her, and she turned around and she looked down. She's like, "Oh, holy hell! Like that's what I look like? Are you kidding me?" I mean,
Like,
I
that's
was a mess.
unacceptable.
Wait, yeah. I mean, she drank coffee all day, never ate. Anyway, so she's like, "Ugh," and then they turned and they walked off. It was beautiful, and and my other grandmother, same thing, and she showed me like these little vignettes, and she could sit and look at everybody. And when she sees everybody, she just sees them, not the surrounding, like kind of
Mhm,
almost like on a stage.
mhm.
And
There's that
how I
stage.
there's that stage again. You're right. But how I knew it was her, how I knew she was really there is I was at the doctor and I'd been waiting and waiting. And she said, "Oh, he's walking in." And he walked in. I'm like, "Oh, pretty cool."
That's
So
cool that you can see that.
well, I don't know I don't know if it's just with people I know. I don't know how that works, but it's you're right. The transition is incredible and we all go through it and nobody wants to talk about it. And everybody, you're going to be fine. It's like, you might
Yeah,
not.
yeah,
This might
like
be it.
we're
You want to go? You
so
want to stay? What do you want to do?
preoccupied with like, don't, I mean, oh, like when we're training students to be with difficult emotion, it's really their impulse to fix it. Like, no, 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 don't cry. It's like, no, you want them to cry. You want them to get it out. Like, how do you get comfortable with difficult emotions? Because when you're able to hold space for people to have their emotions, there's such a bond. And it just came to mind. So and I've never thought about this before, but you know, the day my dad died, June 2nd, 2003 in Kihei, Maui, 4:14 a.m. It was like, so, you know, when you're having a baby, your cervix dilates. Maybe the portal dilates for a few hours because I could feel him. And there were all of these like signs, like my brother and I had planned that when he died, we were going to go and swim at McKenna Beach and just sort of be there, that would be sort of our ceremonial like cleansing. And and we had arranged with I had talked to my dad about how the male cardinal would be a sign for him that we would know. And we were walking down to the beach, and there's a dirt road that leads to it, and it's covered with all of these Keave trees. And there were literally male cardinals dancing back and forth, like 100 of them, as we were walking down the trail. And then when we went swimming, it felt, even though we didn't see it, it just felt like the sky was a dancing rainbow. And we could feel my dad joyfully celebrating with us. And he had died maybe 2 hours earlier. Wow. And we could feel him, and it felt dilated. It felt like the in-between. And so I'm wondering, and I never heard this or talked about it, but doesn't that seem like it would make sense that a dilation happens?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Something happens. I mean, that's what they say about the soft spot on the head, that the baby bounces in and out for quite a while. I mean, but yes, I love that concept. I love
Well, and that's a question we ask in the
visual.
womb too. Like, what, you know, do you when your soul enters the physical body, do you stay, or do you go in and out, or do you leave? Oh, like people who are familiar with the human physical experience are like, oh no, I hate being in there. It's so boring. Yeah. Or some people are like, no, I'm just chilling. You know, I'm comfy. I feel like cozy.
What do you get overwhelmingly? I mean, do you get more of the I'm bouncing back and forth?
I think overwhelmingly, I would say that it's I would say it's pretty evenly split. But I think it's people who, what happens is when people are accessing the womb and they're like, oh yeah, I've done this a million times, I know exactly what to do. And they're going as a means to an end. They understand that this is all just part of it. I'm good. Just like, don't worry about it. But a lot of people are coming in. It's unfamiliar to them. Maybe they've had other lifetimes, but they're still very entrenched in this one. And it can feel very constrictive. Or in the second trimester, I found that is when the emotion starts to be picked up from mom. That's when the newborn starts to be flooded and perceptive of mom's emotions. And they often can be wounded right there. If mom is in a bad place, like anxious, stressed, fearful, doesn't want the baby, sometimes the baby doesn't have I'm just going to say sophistication, just because other souls know how to manage this. But if you don't know, and you're all of a sudden in that energy, that can imprint your personality. Yeah. It's like, I'm not wanted. No one loves me. I'm not wanted, or nothing's safe. I'm afraid. all I know is fear. And so if we can shift that and have the baby understand that this is mom's, this is not mine, and hand it back, and then also create some level of protection, there's a huge shift. And that's just starting with the womb.
So riddle me this, Joker. Why is it? Because I would think no matter what the evolution is of that soul, why is it we can't discern the two? Because you would think that when we hop in, I mean, is it like that filter?
What do you mean, the two of what?
Well, I would assume that the soul, that the soul that's in the baby, like, is probably pretty advanced. I mean, it's not a newborn. It is not a brand new spanking newborn. It is a
new soul. You
done
mean
this? Well, I mean, they're not an infant. Or
maybe they've come from different worlds, perhaps.
Oh, that very well could be.
You know, people who are like, I've never been in an earthly, human body. I've done other bodies, but I've never been here, and it is.
Oh, this school is tough. This
Yeah,
school
this is
is a
like,
mother.
ugh, I do
Yeah.
not like this. Or like having an awareness that the soul chose and coordinated very clearly with their team to come into a super difficult life, and they're feeling the anticipation of that, and they know it's going to be rough, you know, and they need support, and they've got their team there before they're going in, like, you can do this, you can do this, like a little pep rally, and they're just like, okay, here I go. Yeah, I mean, it's all, each time is just so totally unique, and I think it also is the nature of this apparatus that we're working with, and how vast consciousness is, and so to somehow translate energetically what's happening into the sort of human understanding, it what you land on is so different, and so like it's almost like taking, you know, an encyclopedia of experience, and you're just having them hone in on these very specific things. And I think it depends on the hypnotherapist too, and how they're guiding them through, and what, because I've found distinctly in recent years that what's happening in the first trimester is very different than what's happening in the second, and then what's happening in the third, like in the consciousness of the baby. You know, the first one is just like, I'm just coming in. And sometimes they're not really in much at all, like you were saying.
Yeah.
Maybe they're still working with their guides to prepare. They're learning about the family that they're coming into. They're learning more about their purpose. Yeah, it's endlessly fascinating, that womb space.
Have you come across oh my goodness, I can't remember his name. I can look it up. He's a film guy, but he does all the NDEs. Like, he reports on a lot of NDEs, and the stories
Martini, Rich Martini.
no. His story is, where's my phone? Oh, it's right here. Is fascinating. I mean, the stories he tells, and
does he have his own channel?
Yeah, he's on YouTube, and he is. I'll tell you. We can stop. I'll stop doing that.
No, you don't.
Looks like, and it sounds like, and let's see. His name.
I'm trying to find him.
He did. I mean, he Life Between Lives.
Bob Olson?
No, it is Next Level Soul. Next Level Soul podcast. Fascinating site, and he's really, really good. I love. I'll send you the link. He is, but like there, over and over and over again, people say, oh, "I gotta go back." Okay, it's like claustrophobic. Our bodies are like Spanx that are for itty bitties, and we're trying to fit our bodies into them. And it is. And there was one guy. It was a Life Between Lives, and he changed his mind. He got in. And he's like, "I'm not doing this. I'm out of here." And he popped out. He said, "But I created such a ripple effect, because she lost the baby, the mother did, and so he had to go back and kind of do work on that, and kind of clean that up, and it's just fascinating." And he's like, there's nothing wrong with any of that. I mean, but he just decided, I want to do this again. I'm like, no, come on. But he wanted to, like, he met a guy, and he was like, "You are so shiny, and you're so, like, what is it?" And the guy's like, "Oh, I've been at Earth School," and and it just, it's like strapping a rocket booster to your ass. I mean, you being here is so tough that you learn, and you learn at such a quick rate.
So you amplify through experiences. And I think the trickier, well, I mean, I call the ones that are too much, where people are just like, I'm out, I can't handle it. Or, the bit off more you can chew, more than you can chew, lifetimes. But people
sounds like a great idea at the time.
I knew I had it. Well, because they're, before they get into the lifetime, they are convinced that they are absolutely just gonna rock this. Like, I can do this. But then when we're in it, all of the parameters that make us the person that we are, biology, mentally, emotionally, circumstance, abuse, really, I think abuse is a big, tough one for being human. And it's like, oh, hell no, And so how to sort of get through it. And it's not all souls come to earth, not all souls, want that experience. And
Right.
so I think it is a very honored choice. But
Well,
we're
it's a
like,
tough
ha ha
choice.
ha ha, huh?
I can take 25 hours of quantum physics and other PhD level courses to study a lot. I'll stay up all the time. Yeah. No, that's yeah, I think I really do think that's true. And I've always believed that. I mean, since I can remember, I believe that this is just a really tough school, but it doesn't have to be. I mean, that maybe
No,
there it's part of
absolutely. You can come in and have an easier go of it for sure. And there's no judgment. That's the thing too, is no one's going, you really fucked up on this one, demerit. No, we're experiencing life in all of its different ways
right.
and it's a creation. It's like, ooh, what if I do this? How about this? We're getting curious about these different parameters. I don't know about you, but I find myself contemplating, ooh, I think next life I'd like to go blah, 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 like daydream about it.
And how you would, yeah. I mean, I think that does make us definitely feel better on on this side of the veil. But it is, um, yeah. And I don't. I'm not somebody that doesn't want to be here, and I'm not
Mhm.
somebody that necessarily wants to come back. I don't know. I don't know what I don't know. But I do feel there were two things that I wanted to ask you, but the first one is, and it seems to have slipped my mind. Second one is I'm curious about, and this is a total shift, but I'm curious about the whole sexual predatory, because it seems like that seems to be the root of everything. Like talking about what's his name, the
Epstein.
Dalai Lama,
Oh
Epstein. I'm not putting
God.
him in the same thing. I don't
Oh
know,
no. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
saying, why, and like priests and like why is it that so much of our evil is tied to sex,
Hmm.
that sex energy?
I wish I knew.
I don't
I mean,
know. I mean,
is
that's
it
something that
is
just
it
recently occurred to me.
I mean, there's
It is
definitely
palpable and powerful. Yeah.
yeah, it's hard. It seems to be so inextricably linked, like sexual
To almost everything, money, everything,
sadism,
power.
like yeah, it's there's something unacknowledged in our culture. And I don't know if it comes from primates. I don't know if I don't know where it comes from, but it works. I mean, how rape is a normal part of war behavior, right?
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, it again, it seems to be at the root of everything negative. I mean, people
Yeah.
want to make, I mean, it equates to power somehow. And
Mm,
I don't know, because I know with rape, they say that it's not necessarily the act, it's the domination.
mhm.
And are there really that many pedophiles? And how do people become that? I mean, how do people
Yeah.
become sexually deranged? I say deranged. I mean, that's how we qualify that. But it is, I mean, fair enough. But I'm anyway, that was just something
There's
I've
a
been
guy who's doing an
wondering about.
interesting show. Have you heard of the soft white underbelly? I think that's
Yeah.
what it's called.
Like
You've seen
from
that?
the Ozarks and yeah,
Just all kinds of people who have um, you know,
that's really well done too.
yeah, yeah,
He does a great job.
yeah. And he doesn't judge. He just asks some questions. And I think it in the human reality, we're going to have perceptions about things that are like, well, I'm a mom and I want to protect my kids. But also, what about the people who are like, if you're a soul that, and I want to respect that you have a limited amount of time, but
No, no, I'm fine.
if you're a soul that is wanting to experience the full spectrum of human experience, wouldn't it make sense that you would want to explore like not being a good person too?
Sure.
Like,
Sure.
and could it be that that's what people are actually doing?
Well, have they run out of ways to not be a good person? I mean, is that like the ultimate?
Well, I'm
I'm
wondering
sorry.
what if I mean like say Adolf Hitler? What if, I mean, because some people will say, like Abraham Hicks would say about Hitler, this is someone who is so far away from their own light that it's so pinched off that this is what that expression looks like. And I'm wondering, is it possible that people, they're like perfect beams of light and have been in lifetimes where they're like the Dalai Lama, but they're
now
like,
this is the antithesis of that.
right, like, can I experience the opposite? I'm not saying there's any interest in that, but I know I've had past lives where I was a son of a bitch.
Sure, but you have to. I mean, so what
Right.
I've realized,
Right.
I mean, maybe not. To degrees, I don't know, but it is. I know that two things. I feel that what I have learned about myself in this past year is that however extreme I am on this end, there is a boomerang on that end. Like when you meet people and they are so vivacious and they are so up, they probably can be equally the equal down.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, maybe that's not true, but it just seemed, I mean, like the tortured artist. I mean, they're capable of such magnificent work. But then there's this tortured soul. And I'm playing with that idea, but it does seem that there's an opposite and equal effect for things in this world.
Well, we definitely, I mean, the universe, I believe, is predicated on like balance, and it will always find balance.
Right.
And we will always find balance within our own beings. And even if, like, say Mother Teresa, I doubt Mother Teresa had a asshole bone in her body. Maybe she did.
She probably did.
But what if on one hand you're wanting to experience what it is to be like the very best version of yourself, and then that you achieve that and you're like, nailed it, kicked ass, was awesome. And then you're like, but I want to explore this.
Right.
And I mean, my guide told me, no stone left unturned with you, honey.
I love that. No, but I think that there is something to that. I really, really do. And the second thing I was going to say is with Jamie Butler did did you ever see the Channeling Eric, the one that she did with Hitler? She interviewed
Not
Hitler.
that I recall. No, I would have to see that again. God, it's been years since they were doing that, huh? What is that, like, been like a decade now?
Maybe so, but it was interesting because he comes in and at one point she said he was completely buttoned up, like completely like high collar buttoned up. And he said, hold on one second. And he unzipped. That version stayed there and he was there. And he's like, okay, now we can talk. He said, I have to have a container in order to carry all of that, like all that pain, all that negative stuff. And he said, and I mean, according to this, it was like he kind of got tapped to do this. And I think he's been here, like, again, according to this, and it's been years since I've listened to this. And I'm not, I mean, this is whatever. Okay. So
yeah,
so funny.
it's like
I so feel so
anecdotal.
like I want to be respectful,
Right.
and honor all of this, but not him. But and they were saying that he actually agreed to do this, to be this person.
Yeah, I feel like
Somebody had to do it,
Yeah.
I mean, and like Pol Pot. I mean, like somebody has to be the evil version, and it was
show
just,
up
it was
full on. Like, this is not a half-ass shoe.
You can't half-ass be an evil person. You got to nail the evil too.
I mean, if you, and it's not, I mean, I think there's a distinction that we're making between the human context and the spiritual context. Right. So the human context, we're not trying to minimize or say, be light about the fact that Hitler was a horrible human being. I mean, I lost a lot of family members in the Holocaust. It's more on a soul level, what happens where that would take place. And we're talking about choice, right? Like, it's been very clear to me that we're choosing to come into these incarnations. We're choosing to have these lives. And what could we gain out of having, because you can't really have these conversations without someone getting really reactive, right? So just having the conversation of, what would be of benefit on a soul level to have the experience that Adolf Hitler may have had? And I don't know the answer to that, but
Well, it would be a waste if we didn't. If it
right.
was all for naught, and just because, like somebody, like a kid burns the ants with a magnifying glass. I mean,
Right.
it would be a tragic waste if there
Yeah.
isn't something, if there's not some semblance, and maybe our brains need the reason behind it. I don't know. I mean, that very well could be. But
Well, it's all sort of how you look at it. Did you ever read Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl?
was he the one? He was a psychiatrist, and he was in one of the camps. Yeah,
Yeah.
real,
Yeah.
real little book. I mean, it
Yeah.
wasn't.
It's
Yeah,
just a quick read, but it's so profound because it's just really all about perception. And I think we're really in a time right now where there's so much expanding in perceptual studies, and it's a really cool time. But it's how we look at it, and not, again, to minimize the suffering of people, but I mean, what
maybe we're trying to find context for it. I mean, maybe that's another thing that's alternative
or
to
find
the
a humanity, like
right.
like what do you take from that, Adolf? Like, and what did he say in the interview? I kind of want to check
I'll
that
see if I can
interview
find it and I
out.
can send it to you. I don't
I can look
remember.
for
I
it.
don't want to
Yeah.
miss. I don't want to
Yeah,
misquote that.
misquote. Yeah, it's dicey. It's dicey at best
Dicey at best. Yeah, exactly.
but or just anyone like a Jeffrey Dahmer, somebody who has an experience in life that is so completely different than the mainstream and outside of what is socially acceptable,
God, but doesn't that bring up other things? Like I look at that, and maybe it's because again, my paradigms are starting to shift. I thought Charles and I are the most normal. We're the most, like, we don't have a hidden things. We just don't. And
vanilla.
well, but what's interesting is that what I deem as normal is not normal.
Right.
And that's what I've finally realized, is that there is no such thing. And
Yeah.
you really
Oh God,
do,
no.
like, why do we keep ourselves so bound? I mean, going back to how we started this, we do keep ourselves so bound in this structure that we've created. And is it out of fear? Is it out of obligation?
A
Do
lot
I
of it
need
is out of autopilot, a lot of it, and we end up policing ourselves and others. We do it like, did you see that person not following the rules? I'm going to bust them.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
I
exactly.
can't tell you how many people come into my office and say, this is going to sound so weird and you're not going to think I'm normal, and I'm just like,
Try me. Give it your best shot.
Yeah, the myth of normal.
Yeah, there is no such thing as normal. And that's what I think is so fabulous. If you think of just think of yourself on this stage, and the lights are down so you can't see anybody else, how would you live your life? And there's no such thing as good and bad.
How do you want the production to go?
Right, exactly. And that's one other thing I was going to tell you, this little juicy tidbit, and I don't know why I want to tell you this, but it's not juicy, but Charles and I were falling asleep the other night, and he said something about time, and I was like, oh, I just figured out time.
All right, like, oh my gosh.
On the other side, you know how they always say there's no such thing as time? Everything is now.
Yeah.
Everything is now. I mean, but
sure.
On the other side, no, I didn't get that. Is that the reason they don't experience time is that everything is right now.
Yeah, it is very different. And it's time is an earthly construct for us.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's an agreed upon
reality.
Exactly. Right.
Like today.
It helps us. Right.
No, that's funny. I've done that.
That
silly, tricky little time zones
that some people don't seem to adhere to very well. Oy, oy, oy.
What's time?
Well, my dear, it's been so fabulous seeing you. And I miss you.
I miss you too. We're gonna have to play at some point.
It's so true. And I can't wait to hear more about the series you're working on. And of course, I'll have you on the show soon again, and we'll just talk more about all of these fun human conundrums,
random thoughts.
and for whoever is watching and following us, please feel free to comment if you have things that you want to share. I invite you, and we're all just one big happy family. And I'm seeing it's funny, just as I was looking at
Wallpaper?
the wallpaper, the birds, to my eyes, they looked like thumbs up.
Oh, that's funny.
The birds, can you see them? How the birds,
yeah, they do look like
their
thumbs
heads
up,
are sort of like thumbs up, like,
thumbs up.
okay, we're
Little
it's a thumbs up. They are so beautiful.
I know. I did this entire room around this wallpaper. I put it up, and then it was like, now what? what goes with this?
Yeah, I've been kind of tripping on it, like it's been doing sort of a kaleidoscope thing. And and I swear I'm clean here. But the tails and the little the vininess of it has been, we were talking about like death and sort of or changing when you start pulling your tendrils of consciousness out of something and start to pivot. It was looking like that, and I was just like, whoa.
Maybe that's why I'm sitting here. That's why I'm attracted to it. All right, Mama, we'll give everybody my love in your house.
And same for your house. And
thank you.
I love you.
I love you too. And I will see you soon.
All right, everyone. Take good care. And until next time.
Au revoir.
Au revoir.
Au revoir. Bye.
Bye.